This is a more regimented organization.
Oh, is Maria not coming tonight? Oh, John Ingwerson. I forgot John Ingwerson. Yeah, the people is.
John will circle the block 3 times that he likes to get when that second hand.
Yeah, as close as I am to the office, I have not driven here yet. I will, I mean, it's just been a chaotic month.
When it gets warmer, you'll leave.
Oh, yeah, I'll probably walk. I'll definitely try coding, of course, too. So.
Too bad the C bus is not.
Oh, I know. That would be perfect.
It stopped for COVID and then they were just like, we're not bringing it back. So awesome. It was pretty great. We used it all the time.
Yeah, I still have to sell my house in Plain City though, so.
Did you guys buy anything home to rent?
No, we're renting. I know I don't want to retire in this city, so I don't really want
You're
to.
gonna go to like Spain.
What's that?
So you're streaming on YouTube, by the way.
Oh.
Every real estate person. Hey, just heard you might be interested.
As if we don't get enough phone calls.
That's right.
Okay, we're excited to be open to do this. It's nice. I don't know if you know Josh. Yeah, he's our business partner.
So were you the one that done yesterday?
Yes.
Oh.
He was in the back. He did.
But they say he was in the back, yeah.
He had 4 meetings while we were driving to him the date, and so I just drove and listened to him talk.
So,
All preservation. All the pre-app meetings are this week.
I said, yeah, so yeah, I got it. But see, that's. Are you doing better? Then he said, well, I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm driving now, so okay. Okay.
It's gonna be a great project.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yes.
I also live in the neighborhood,
Okay.
so I'm also really excited to see what it'll be. I mean, I hope it, programming and stuff, it'll be
Yes.
like awesome for everybody. So.
I'll tell you yesterday's meeting. I'm changing what I'm trying to do. Oh, yeah.
He's really good though. He's very good. The other ones are. So when you get to. It's really different. No, exactly right.
Well, that is powerful then.
You know.
That was good.
Yeah. He's been around for a while. So.
Three minutes, John. So,
It's hard usually the one walking into it, isn't it? So. Drop off today.
yeah, if you don't want to go away, you can. So, it's that.
Wonder if that's on the table for them.
No. I was before you. Okay.
So it's really hard for me to even get anything. So I think it's got.
We, Ev and I flew out there, it was just the 2 of us, and our flight back to Columbus got canceled. So we got stuck in Detroit. Our flight got in at like 1:30 and our flight home was at 6. So you can imagine trying to put a collar to bed and then waking her up and getting her back to the airport was
Right, yeah, sure.
made up.
Yeah.
And all of our stuff was still
I'm a
at the
lawyer.
airport. And we didn't have any nighttime diapers with us in our.
I started getting.
And no clothes. So don't let her have it. We will be riding.
We see a lot of development stuff.
She did.
We didn't have an area.
You did.
So
She's fine.
Okay,
so-
good.
Yeah.
Couldn't move back.
I got in.
How old is that now?
She's 3. Got involved and eventually ended up with.
Getting a brother in May.
Really? Oh.
You can't tell. You thought I was just getting thrown from a bus.
Congratulations.
Thanks. We're excited. Okay. She's excited. She's demanding some specific names. Bob is the highest gift.
Oh, yeah.
So we're excited.
Bob.
She has a doll named Bob that wears pink. That's her favorite boy.
I think you need a bang on it. Okay. Be like friends.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah. It's definitely filled out.
Toy
Careful. Like that. Oh, there was a giant.
Aaron.
Wants all members of work. We're gonna get a. There's a lucky grocery store, it's the same as the one in. So the redesign.
He's got something to say.
Right. Your individual account.
From the neighborhood.
May 15th, Mother's Day. But,
At the end of the day, the airline's done. When he was born.
So, see, goes.
One of those. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sheriff.
Yep, we're ready? Are we plugged in? Okay, I would like to call the February 9th, 2023 Development Commission meeting to order, and we will start as usual with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance. Okay, our ex-superstar Shannon Pine would like to make an announcement, and introduce a new member.
Yes, I welcome everybody. I just wanted to welcome David Carey as our newest Development Commission member. David is an attorney with the ACLU and recently just served on the Graphics Commission. So we stole him from the Graphics Commission, and he's also the chair or the zoning chair of the Harrison West.
Planning chair, yeah.
Planning chair of the Harrison West Society. So we are glad to have Marty's recently vacated seat filled with another attorney. So that's great news. So thank you again for your willingness to serve.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we will start with case number 1, Z22-087, 3032 Princeton Ave.
The site consists of one undeveloped parcel zoned in the R4 residential district. The requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District will permit a parking lot at this location. The parking lot will serve as a private lot for the uses located at 1251 West Broad Street. Lot will provide other parking spaces, including one ADA compliant space. To the north is an office building with an accessory residential structure and a retail building in the LC4 Limited Commercial District. The south, east, and west is undeveloped land in the R4 Residential District. The sites within the planning boundaries of the West Franklin Plan, which recommends medium to high density residential end uses at this location. Plan also includes the early adoption of Columbus City-wide planning policy, CTP2 design guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the Franklinton Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The CPD text commits to a site plan and establishes use restrictions and includes supplemental development standards that address parking setbacks, access, buffering, and landscaping and traffic provisions. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, will permit the site to be developed with a private parking lot for the uses located at 1251 West Broad Street. Although the proposal is inconsistent with the West Franklinton Plan's recommendation for medium to high density residential land uses, the requested CPD district site plan demonstrates adequate landscaping and screening and includes a commitment that bicycle parking will be located along the building frontage of 1251 West Broad Street to alleviate visibility concerns. Staff considers these aspects of the development to be consistent with CTP design guidelines and therefore supports the request. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? Okay, are there traffic issues here
No traffic issues.
and planning?
Or support.
Okay, and any recreation and parks?
No concerns.
Okay, great. Okay, is there anyone here to speak regarding case number 1 tonight? You're the applicant?
I'm the applicant, yes.
Okay, give us your name for the record.
Andrew Wapner with New City Homes.
Okay, if you'd like to add anything to the staff's presentation.
I can just answer any questions that you have that staff can't answer.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the table? Okay, please call the roll.
Janice P. Shanklin,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingwerson.
Yes.
Cam Mugway,
Yes.
David Carey,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 2, Z22-082, 983 East Main Street.
In your supplemental packet is an email from the Division of Traffic Management with a note regarding the vehicle storage location and possible minor site plan modification. Staff still remains in full support of this, and that comment will be addressed prior to this ordinance moving to City Council. The site is developed with an automobile sales lot in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The current CPD text only permits C2 uses, and the requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District would allow automobile sales. To the north of the site, across East Main Street, is the Salvation Army Building in the ARLD Apartment Residential District. To the south are single-unit dwellings in the R2F Residential District. To the east is the Mental Health and Substance Use Disorder Treatment Center in the LC3 Limited Commercial District. And to the west is a multi-tenant commercial building in the ARLD Apartment Residential District. The site is subject to the East Main Street Urban Commercial Overlay and is located within the planning boundaries of the Near East Area Plan, which recommends higher density residential and mixed-use land uses at this location. Plan also states that commercial development should occur within the existing historic commercial districts. Furthermore, the plan recommends that parking be located to the rear of the principal building and that it be screened from adjacent public streets. The site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The fencing condition within their recommendation has been met and incorporated into the site plan. The development text permits C4 uses, commits to a site plan, and includes development standards addressing setbacks, traffic access, screening, and signage. The text also includes code modifications to waive landscaping and screening requirements and to allow parallel parking spaces to be located on the side of the building. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, will conform an existing automobile sales facility. The proposal is consistent with the Near East Area Plan's recommendations for commercial development occurring within existing historical commercial districts, such as Main Street, and for parking to be located to the rear of the principal building, screened from adjacent public streets. Therefore, City Department's recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions, comments? Okay, traffic.
Our comment in the supplemental packet is just to make sure that vehicles for sale don't obstruct customers' ability to exit the site.
Is that in the text yet or not yet?
That would just be a minor modification to the plan.
Okay. Planning
No further comments?
and Kathy.
No concern.
Okay. Is anyone here to speak? Case number 2. Okay, would you like to add anything to the staff's report?
No, I'm just here to answer any questions.
Okay, give us your name for the
Yeah, my
record.
name is Andrew Vogel, and I'm the applicant and the architect.
All right, any questions of the applicant? Okay, let's call a roll.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingwerson,
Yes.
Kayla Mugway,
Yes.
David Carey,
Yes.
Janice Shanklin,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 3, Z22-084, 616 East Casas Street.
Site consists of one parcel developed with a parking lot in the C4 commercial district. Requested R4 residential district will permit a residential development at this location. To the north, east, and west are single-unit dwellings in the R2F residential district. To the south is a single-unit dwelling and a 2-unit dwelling in the R2F residential district. Sites from the planning boundaries of the near south side plan, which recommends medium-density mixed residential land uses at this location. Plan also includes the early adoption of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies, C2P2 design guidelines. A concurrent council variance CV 22-114 has been filed for proposed residential development, demonstrating 4 dwelling units. Variances for building setbacks and maximum minimum side yards are included in that request. That request will be heard by city council and will not be considered at this development commission meeting. Site is located within the boundaries of the Columbus Southside Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The requested R4 residential district will permit residential development in conjunction with concurrent council variance CV 22-114. Proposed use is consistent with the medium-density mixed residential land use recommendation of the near south side plan. Proposed R4 district is not considered to be an introduction of an incompatible use and is consistent with surrounding residential zoning and development patterns. Therefore, City Department's recommendation is for approval.
Okay, any questions or comments? Dan, traffic?
No traffic issues.
And Chris, no further comments? Kathy?
No concerns.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak regarding case number 3, Casas Street?
I'm Julie Bullock, the architect.
Okay,
I'm just here if you have any questions.
all right. Does anyone have any questions?
Was this the community garden site?
No, that's across the street.
Okay. And did you get her name for the record? Okay. All right, let's call a roll.
John Ingwerson,
Yes.
Kayla Mugway,
Yes.
David Carey,
Yes.
Janice Shanklin,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, case number 4, Z22-062, 1115 Stelzer Road.
The 35.17 acre site consists of 2 parcels in the R Rural District and M2 Manufacturing District, developed with a parking lot for the John Glenn Columbus International Airport. A portion of the site is subject to CV 07-014, which permits the parking lot. That ordinance was conditioned on the applicant filing a rezoning application for the subject property and any adjacent properties owned and are operated by the Columbus Regional Airport Authority within 10 months from the effective date of the ordinance, which was 6/29/08. The requested M Manufacturing District will permit the continued use of the parking lot and satisfy the condition of ordinance 1068-2007. To the north of the site is International Gateway in the R1 residential district. To the south is undeveloped land owned by the Columbus Regional Airport Authority in the M2 Manufacturing District. To the east, across Stelzer Road, is a parking lot for the John Glenn International Airport in the M Manufacturing District. To the west is undeveloped land in the M Manufacturing District. Concurrent CV 22-082 has been filed to vary landscaping, screening, and parking space size requirements. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the planning area of the East Columbus Neighborhood Plan, which recommends institutional land uses at this location, and the Port Columbus Joint Economic Development Strategy Plan, which recommends airport land uses at this location. Additionally, the site is subject to the Port Columbus International Airport Environmental Overlay. The site is subject
Site is located within the boundaries of the East Columbus Civic Association, whose recommendation is for approval. The requested M manufacturing district will permit the existing parking lots and satisfies the condition of ordinance 1068-2007. The proposal is consistent with the plan's recommendations for airport-related uses. Planning Division staff continues to encourage the applicant to plant street trees, but does not condition support on this request. In your supplemental packet is an email from the Division of Traffic Management regarding the current status of the public right-of-way within the street. The intent of that is to resolve those comments prior to the approval of the final site compliance plan associated with the proposal. That email is just kind of explaining the current status of that. Staff's City Department's recommendation remains in full support, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I would guess that Dan is the answer for some traffic issues.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Dan, what about traffic?
It's noted that there's currently areas of public right of way within the site, but the applicant and the city are in the process of working on transferring that to the applicant.
It's obviously fixed use. Planning?
No further comments.
Kathy?
No concerns.
Okay, is anyone in the audience here for case number 4? You're an applicant.
Yes.
Okay, let's have your names for the report.
Thank you. Laura Comack, Law, 17 South High, Suite 700, Columbus, Ohio, 43215.
Hey guys, Mark Kelby with Columbus Regional Airport Authority, 4600 International Gateway, Columbus, 43219.
Great. Okay, questions or comments? Anything you want to add to the staff's report?
Not a thing. Thank you.
It looks like you've done your homework. You got everybody on board. Nobody here to speak. Please call the roll.
Kay Mugway,
Yes.
David Carey,
Yes.
Denise P. Shanklin.
Yes.
Amanda Golden. John Ingwerson.
Yes.
Sheriff Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 5, Z22-083, 1289 East Dublin Granville Road.
In your supplemental packet, there were 10 emails from neighboring property owners in opposition of this request. And there was also a 6-page report from the Northland Community Council regarding their recommendation. The 1.77 acre site consists of one parcel developed with an 82-room hotel in the C3 commercial district and ARO apartment office district. The requested ARO apartment office district will permit the applicant to convert the hotel into an 82-unit supportive housing development. North of this site is a hotel in the LC3 limited commercial district. South of the site are 2-unit dwellings in the R2F residential district. East of the site is an empty bank building in the ARO apartment office district. And west of the site is commercial development in the C4 commercial district and P1 private parking district. There is concurrent council variance CV 22-109, which has been filed and includes variances to permit commercial vehicular access through the site and a reduction to the number of required parking spaces. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Northland Area Plan, which recommends community commercial land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northland Community Council, whose recommendation is for disapproval. The requested ARO apartment office district will permit the conversion of an existing hotel into an 82-unit supportive housing development. While the Northland 1 area plan recommends community commercial land uses at this location, the plan states that neighborhoods should have a mix of uses that provide a variety of housing types. The site design that stresses the importance of adequate landscaping and screening and encourages sidewalks and pedestrian connectivity. While staff supports the proposed use, the following conditions from the planning division need to be addressed for full support. Additional landscaping and screening so that parking is hidden to the greatest extent possible. Additional sidewalks along 161 Service Road, and enhanced landscaping and screening for the site, and details regarding any potential changes to the existing building. Until those conditions have been met, we are recommending conditional approval.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody?
That an alley or a road that is south of the property, is that public
No, that is part of their access, part of this property's access to Satinwood Drive.
Then the property next to it, which is the one on the left.
They access their property through this property,
Yeah,
which is why,
property.
yeah, which is why part of the concurrent council variance has a variance to allow commercial vehicular access.
Okay.
Because that property is
Land.
C4, so you'll have office use people accessing their site through this parcel. So it is an odd configuration.
And they are aware of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other question, comment? Dan, traffic,
No traffic issues with this application.
and Chris,
As noted, we have conditions prior to breaches.
the conditions just cited. Okay, Kathy.
You have no additional comments.
Okay, is anyone here to speak regarding this application? 2, 3, okay. We have the same rules that city council has, 3 speakers, 3 minutes each. And we have a very serious timer, he's X-boxing.
And Dave, obviously Dave Paul can speak independently of those 3.
As the area commission. So besides Dave, 3 more people. And then, do you have anything to add to the staff's report?
Good evening. My name is Liana Barbu. I represent the Community Shelter Board, and we have a presentation to make in support of the application.
Okay, let's hear the presentation.
Hey, let's see if it works. Again, I'm Liana Barbu. I'm the Associate Director of the Community Shelter Board, and I'm joined by Steve Skavensky, our Director of Programs and Planning. And behind me, I also have a representative from Homeful, our partner agency, Teresa Nola, and also the representative of the owner of the property, Kennedy Dulo. So we are here today in support of the conversion of the property at 1289 Dublin Granville Road. And we'll talk a little bit today about the affordable housing shortage in Columbus and Franklin County. What are the nationwide and local examples on converting hotels to affordable housing? What is Homeful's role in this endeavor? And the 1289 proposal. So a little bit about Community Shelter Board. We bring together 20 partner agencies to ensure that if homelessness happens, it is brief, rare, and non-reoccurring. These partner agencies provide an array of services, including homelessness prevention, emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. And our partner agencies that we fund served over 15,000 people last year. One of those partner agencies is Homeful. So why we are here today? Because as you all know, we have a serious shortage of affordable housing in our community. Right now, there are only 32 affordable housing units for every 100 low-income families in Franklin County that need them. And over 60,000 families in Central Ohio pay over 50% of their income on rent-related costs. When we talk about affordable housing, we mean that households do not pay more than 30% of their income on housing costs, and those are rent and utility costs. So there is a huge gap in affordable housing right now in our community. As it relates to Community Shelter Board, we are talking about a smaller slice of the affordable housing universe, specifically about permanent supportive housing. And permanent supportive housing is affordable housing that is geared towards people who meet 2 criteria. One, people have to be homeless for a long time, and they also have to have a diagnosed disability. That disability can be any type of disability, but it has to be diagnosed by a medical professional. And again, the long-term disability has to happen and has to be a certified or a documented homeless experience that the person had. This past year, we served in our system over 3,200 people in our system of care. We have 2,400 units of permanent supportive housing in our community. And we have what we call scatter site units, which are units that we rent in the community and we pay the subsidy, the rent subsidy for these units, and literally they're everywhere in the community. And then we have site-based permanent supportive housing, which means those are full buildings that are dedicated to people that meet those two criteria, homelessness and disability. And you see on this map the spread of those site-based permanent supportive housing developments in our community. In Northland, we actually have one development. You see that noted as 23. And that actually is a hotel. It is on 111 Mediterranean Avenue. It is a converted hotel. We will talk a little bit about that. That already functions as a permanent supportive housing development. So the main question is, why don't we just develop one of these site-based permanent supportive housing buildings instead of just converting a motel? Here is why. To build a new permanent supportive housing development costs a lot of money. And this is the cost for the latest developments that we had in our community that Community Shelter Board supported. And you can see the cost of these developments. It's anywhere from $12 million to $19 million. A development similar in size to what we are talking about here, the 1289 building has 82 rooms. So here the 88 unit building at Berwyn East Place is $19 million. Not only the price tag, but also the development time. To bring up a new permanent supportive housing building, it is 3 to 4 years. It is 12 to 18 months, the actual development time, but to get the funding that is needed to build, it takes 3 to 4 years to get it through the tax credit process, to get all the funding needed. It takes a long time. So it is a financial investment, it is significant, and it is a time investment, it is significant. We cannot wait 3 to 4 years to add more affordable housing units to our community when we have such a gap in affordable housing. So we need to find creative ways. So again, when we talk about our smaller slice of affordable housing, which is again permanent supportive housing, every year Community Shelter Board does a gap analysis. And we are asking the question, what is the gap for the permanent supportive housing in our community? The 2022 gap analysis for us shows that we need 1,458 units of permanent supportive housing right now. Every year that we are not developing permanent supportive housing adds to this gap.
It's Liana. My name is Steve Skowensky. I'm the Director of Programs and Planning at Community Shelter Board. Good afternoon. And I am going to just talk about some national examples of the hotel motel to permanent supportive housing conversions, and then talk more specifically about our local example in Northland that is operated by our partner Homeful. And then I'll pass the presentation to Teresa Nolan from Homeful. So just really want to note that this opportunity for hotel motel conversion, including even office space, has become a national model. And you can see the large number that we're on pace to be converted in 2021. So just wanted to share some examples nationally. As I had mentioned, this is one of the hotels in Vermont that was converted into permanent supportive housing. And then another example of a hotel in Boston that was converted, a Comfort Inn, into permanent supportive housing. And then more applicable to this application, this is a motel conversion that's from Fort Worth, Texas. Also a motel conversion in Modesto, California. And then the last, just to note, the Coalition for the Homeless in Denver converted this hotel into permanent supportive housing. So we have, multiple examples. And again, I'm going to get into some now very specific information about the Mediterranean, which is in the Northland community. And I think it's a great example of a successful conversion. So just kind of walking through the details of a conversion of a hotel motel into permanent supportive housing. We always want to be very clear that this is permanent housing. There's a component where we want people to move into their own units based in the community, but if their disabilities or needs are such that they need to maintain this housing, it is a permanent option. And we always want to be really clear that, we want to develop more housing and not emergency shelter. So everyone has their own lease. They're expected to comply with the terms of the lease, but also, the responsibilities of holding a lease along with the rights that come with that. So we take that very seriously, that people are empowered to have their own direction in terms of maintaining their lease. Their rooms are inspected quarterly, and alongside that, there are monthly case management meetings. Homeful also provides behavioral health services on site. And then really important to note just the transition into how do we secure a permanent supportive housing site that was a hotel or a motel. So there is 24-hour staffing at the front. There's a security system where folks, some locations they enter a code, some locations they have a fob that allows them to come in, but there's a controlled opportunity to know who is on site in the building. So we have security systems on place, private security, and also working with the Columbus Police Department on having special duty officers. And then the last thing I wanted to note that's extremely exciting is that we've launched a crisis prevention initiative to embed trained crisis specialists on site, both in our housing and shelter programs. So we have a full-time crisis prevention specialist that began working at the Mediterranean as of January 1st. So we're really excited about that, with the goal of increasing safety and reducing 911 calls. So I'll pass it over to Teresa. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Nolan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Homeful, the nonprofit organization that would be contracted with Community Shelter Board to provide oversight at the facility. And as just mentioned, the current role that we have at the 1111 Mediterranean building. Homeful is a 35-year-old nonprofit focused on housing stability. We work with people who are formerly homeless, currently homeless, to get them housed, but our ultimate goal overall is housing stability, and we have a mantra that we approach that with called housing, food, and jobs. The idea being that we all need income to keep our housing stable, and most of us have basic needs of food and housing that go hand in hand. And the unfortunate reality for a lot of our local citizens is that they are impoverished in a way that they sometimes have to choose between food and rent. And our goal as an organization is to support folks to not have to worry about those choices, that we can make sure we wrap services around them and provide support to make sure those things don't happen. So we are, there's our slide. So currently we serve over 1,000 households in the Franklin County area, again, contracted under the Community Shelter Board in this model of permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing, again, requires a diagnosed disability and homelessness status. And then what they get once they're in our program is a long-term subsidy to help them pay their rent, and they get our services that are supportive around them. As Steve mentioned, that includes crisis intervention, but it also includes ongoing stability work. So that could be a variety of things. I think we all understand that homelessness is caused essentially at the basis by poverty, but all of us individually might have other contributing factors that could lead any of us to become homeless at some point, right? Addiction, mental health challenges, family issues, you name it, right? People have issues around them, and that's our goal, is to be there to work with them to address a variety of those issues, to not have them recidivate to homelessness, right? To increase their housing stability. So at congregate sites, as Steve mentioned, we provide 24-hour staffing. So it's a variety of case management services to property management to security, front desk staff, for example, at the 1111 building that help kind of manage the coming and goings in the building, handle anything related to guests or even vendors that come, et cetera. So our goal is to replicate a very successful model at the 1111 building at this new location at the 1289 Dublin Granville Road. We are looking to be contributing to the stability of housing for many, many vulnerable local Columbus citizens by increasing the housing availability at this site specifically. Okay, the 1289 Dublin Granville proposal, specifically, our goal is to move people from living in situations like this, right, on the street, unsheltered, in places that are obviously unsafe, not good with weather. As we all know, weather is dynamic in our area, and we need to be able to help protect people with basic shelter. Moving them from that to this, which is 4 walls, a door that provides safety and security, a basic sense of privacy that we all understand is a necessity to survival. It provides their own bathroom, which, believe it or not, is very important to many people. It gives dignity of personal space, right? So the idea is that we want to create something that is not there for many folks that are living in our community with a building, you know, that is currently not occupied. Example here, sleeping in their own bed, right? We all understand the medical benefits, the life benefits of having solid, safe sleep environment. Again, they would have a private bathroom for personal health and hygiene purposes. At this site, there are 82 units that would be converted. These are single occupancy units, so we would be housing disabled single men and women at this facility, should this be approved. Again, it's currently closed. This is not housing anyone currently. It is not operating as a motel. During the pandemic, however, you know, the owners of the building, of the motel site, worked very closely with the Community Shelter Board to use it as a COVID quarantine facility, right? To keep folks in the system separated from others that were diagnosed with COVID so that they could have rest and recovery space, but also contribute less to spreading COVID around further. Now that we're looking a little past that stage of the pandemic, CSB and Homeful are working together with the owners of the building and obviously others involved to look at it as permanent housing instead of a transient site. So we'd like, again, to mimic the model at the Mediterranean, building operations not as motel any longer, but as permanent housing. The goal, what permanent housing brings is obviously round-the-clock staffing, provides a sense of safety and security for the community as well, as opposed to a motel setting. We definitely would be working with the community. We've been hearing lots of feedback around things they'd like to see in the neighborhood. One thing that Homeful has always prided ourselves on specifically, and I know the Community Shelter Board shares this, is to be good neighbors. We want to work with people in the community to help our facility itself, but we also work with our clients in all of the neighborhoods they live in throughout this county to be good neighbors in general. The concept at this permanent housing site is that tenants, all of the folks that we would be placing here are tenants, right? They would sign their own leases. They would have to follow lease requirements. They would pay rent. The rooms would be inspected. Again, we have property management on site, so we'd be inspecting units. They'd meet with case managers regularly. There would be security system in place, including cameras, as well as obvious persons in place. We would be working constantly around the clock on independent living, increasing housing stability. As was mentioned, we are accredited in behavioral health services, so we work closely with our clients on what's called community psychiatric support treatment, providing a higher level of behavioral health support.
So our journey here started actually last year, but we really were meeting aggressively, I would say, since the beginning of the year. We were at the Northland Community Council starting January. We met with multiple civic associations in Northland, with the Business Association, and January 25th with Northland Community Council. And then we'll also spend Valentine's Day with the Carmelwood Ward Park Civic Association. So we are here today to ask for the right zoning for this building, and we are not experts in zoning. We are here to ask for what is the right zoning to allow for the activities that you heard here that we would like to do at this building to allow for the most vulnerable in our community to have stable housing with support services so they can live independent lives going forward. As we met with the community, we heard concerns and we, I think, addressed many of the concerns coming from the community. And we committed to the community that we will be with them along the way. And we are in the community already through the 1111 Mediterranean building. And we are willing to work with them to continue to be good neighbors. One of the concerns that we heard is around the building ownership and what happens if this rezoning happens, but then the building owner changes its mind, let's say, and they are not willing to sell the building because ultimately Homeful would like to own this property. The building owner is interested in a meaningful use of the building. He wants to sell the building. Homeful does have a letter of intent to purchase the building. We can have a lease that contains provision for the right of first refusal, so we can have in place things that mitigate the owner changing its mind, but again, we don't think that that will occur. Permanency of the zoning change was one of the other concerns that was brought, and what happens if Homeful Community Shelter Board changes its mind and we don't want to do permanent supportive housing anymore. And we think that that is not a concern. Any permanent supportive housing building that Community Shelter Board supported is still operating. The first permanent supportive housing that was opened, which is in downtown Columbus, Commons and at Grant, is still operating. Fencing and building aesthetics was another concern. Address it?
Sure. So we have worked with an architect to get a design example in place. This is one idea that was presented for the first floor to address immediate access to the rooms on the first floor. It is a traditional motel setup where doors are on the exterior. There's not a lobby you enter through to access all of the rooms. So that was one issue we identified initially early on, but we also heard feedback from the community as vital in their interest as well. So this is one proposal we had, but we have, again, heard feedback and are working with different ideas to have the best setup for everyone's aesthetics, but also, again, keeping in mind safety and security. We're very committed to making the property work, again, for us, for the program, for the folks that we want to place there, but also to be, again, very good community members and hear the feedback that is desired.
And with that, we'll wrap up, and we are again here to ask for your help in creating more affordable housing in our community for the most vulnerable of our community, and to do that in creative ways, in the most cost-efficient and effective way possible. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, very well prepared. Okay, Dave, would you like to be the first speaker of the?
Were there any questions for them? I don't know if you.
I think we'll come back to questions after you.
Yes.
Any folks have questions? Okay, we have a question.
I have a number of questions, actually.
Okay, come back to the microphone.
In the rendering that you showed, we didn't see any kitchenettes. I mean, how are these folks going to prepare food on a regular basis?
Great question. So similar to the 1111 Mediterranean building, we set up refrigerators and microwaves in place in every room, and create, a kitchenette area in between, essentially the living area and the bathroom. So we would do a similar model in this setup as well.
Will the building be brought up to ADA standards? I assume all the bathrooms will be ADA compliant.
There are a number of rooms that are already designated as ADA compliant, from our understanding.
Will all of them be brought up to ADA compliance, considering this is for folks with disabilities?
Not all of our folks with disabilities require physical disability accommodations. Disability has a number of different definitions from our standpoint. So many of our folks do not need a specifically ADA accessible unit for that matter.
Seems like this building is different than the example you showed because it looks like it was more of had a like more central corridors potentially, looks more like an apartment building rather than a motel. I don't know what the rest of the building looks like, but you mentioned like security, like, you know, key fobs and things like that. How is that going to be addressed with the access on the exterior on the second floor specifically?
The second floor actually has stairwells accessing it, so it's a little bit more of a flow that you have to enter toward the middle of the building or the very end. The middle of the building, which you can't see kind of there, it's on the left of the picture, sort of where the office is. We'd have staff there, but we also have security staff that would be doing perimeter walks, right? Not just sitting in one place. And then we'd have security cameras in place throughout. On the back side of the building as well, it has entry doors that we'd have. And that accessibility was one reason we wanted a first floor kind of barrier of sorts, that so that there isn't just, you know, pull up and run right into a unit. There's kind of to create a flow essentially to have control over that.
So the stair door would essentially act as the thing that you're swapping, scanning to get up to the second floor.
Yeah, and each door has their own key, except, I mean, it has a lock on it like any motel room would, but like any apartment building would as well.
Also, I didn't see any green space, any significant green space for folks. What's that?
Great question. That was actually some feedback that was received about doing some landscaping. That's actually something what we have done in our history with other sites that we've worked at, that we've created green space in there. We have landscapers we've worked with as well that we would do that. We would love to be able to add something in there that's a little more aesthetically pleasing for sure.
Okay. The actual 1111 property, you indicated that you had Columbus Police Department. So I want to make sure that is there security at this location or is it the same situation?
Great question.
So at the 1111, we have both private security and off-duty police officers.
So that's for
And that's what we will have also at this location.
If I may, too, an important component of permanent supportive housing is a flow of guests. And so when there's the central office here, any resident who's having a guest, there's a process that guest has to check in. And that's also tied into the lease. So there's that important component of abiding by guest policies and, you know, living by the terms of your lease. So that's kind of a check and balance when it comes to safety and security of knowing who's visiting each unit. So that's just an important distinction, I think, when it comes to kind of monitoring the flow of people.
Yeah, okay. As a follow-up to my colleague's question here about the kitchenette, would there be any cooking in each of the rooms?
Will there be cooking?
Yes.
Microwaves will be available. That's the setup we have at 1111 Mediterranean includes refrigerator and microwave. We also bring prepared food on site frequently. That's a big part of our support services is food accessibility. So we often bring hot food in, if you will, to help supplement. But yes, microwaves would be the cooking utensil.
Then the other one is the issue of security. I think it's a critical one. I know 161, especially this building is known for crime infestation, if I may say. So how do you intend not to disparage any population or any cohort? The people you are bringing in have been exposed to the elements. Part of the elements is drug abuse, not all of them. So how is that going to be controlled in a facility such as this that doesn't have one point of control?
So using it as an example, the 1111 Mediterranean building, we've looked at the numbers of police calls as a reference point. The number of police calls to any permanent supportive housing site under Community Shelter Board, but specifically 1111 Mediterranean that we've managed are significantly lower than a similar motel site. So the mere fact of having it be a program where people are selected to enter are controlled by staff, controlled to a certain extent, of course, managed by staff on site. Granted, nobody can control anyone 100% of the time, but that we would be working with our clients that live on site there around any behavioral issues. Anyone who violates a lease can be evicted just like anyone else holding a lease in the entire community. So we hold people to that standard as well. So in my opinion, we actually provide a higher level of safety and security than any general apartment building or motel for that matter, because of those extra levels of selection and that we work with people nonstop.
Okay, I got one more question. Since it's a two-story building, there's no elevator, so I assume.
That's correct.
So in that case, they have you have to be selective about the people that goes up on the second floor.
That's correct. Yes. Mhm.
Just, we will go over this again after the speakers, but your comparison to 111 is a real stretch for me. I'm an architect. I find that you providing any services in the middle of winter when it's 10 below zero and you're bringing food around, taking care of shoveling snow, basically you've got a motel room that you've got somebody living in and you're trying to service them from a balcony. There's no sense of community in this building as far as people interacting or working together. They're all on the exterior of the building and they're going to their own little room. You don't have any plans pulled together that show any of the shared space or community space. I don't know what you intend there. So your proposal's really thin. I mean, your goals and the work you do is wonderful. But this, I'm having trouble getting from what I see as the reality of your building to what you're proposing to offer to your clients. So we'll hear some more about it, but I don't think you're prepared to flesh any of that out.
I can address a couple of those points if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, I know you're going to put a kitchenette and a refrigerator in there, but typically when you're asking for a change in zoning, there's some sort of quid pro quo that goes on that shows that this is a benefit to the neighborhood and to the community at large. I can see the community at large piece, but having a disconnect there with how this compares to some of the other models that you've shown. I mean, this building type is the absolute bare minimum built, what, 50 years ago to serve a transient, absolutely transient development along 161, and it is outmoded and it's sunset on the building almost. So I'm having a real problem stretching to where you are and your vision of how this building's going to work.
Sure. So as I mentioned, Homeful serves over 1,000 households in the community. Minus 70 that live at the 1111 Mediterranean building, all of them are scattered site around the community. They're not in a congregate site, meaning that the sense of community that you mentioned, our staff travel regardless of weather, regardless of heat and cold, every workday they go out into the community to see clients. So the question of going to the doors outside, that's a non-issue for our staff. That's an expectation of the job. There also is in the center building where the office is, there is space for meeting clients in there as well. So we would be able to have them come into that space, as well as part of the work of community case management is going to see clients' units. That's part of kind of how you assess their housing stability, how they could tell you everything's great, and then you come in and see their home and it doesn't look so great, right? You see signs of how their functioning isn't good. So it's important to us to go into those units. That would be a definite expectation for that. Yeah.
We need to move this along a little bit and get
Can I
a
ask
bigger
one
picture.
question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier the possibility of eviction in the event of a lease violation. Does Homeful have any policies for uniform enforcement of that, or is it sort of handled ad hoc?
Oh, absolutely, policies, yes. We follow fair housing laws. We have an attorney that handles evictions. We have to follow all steps of the law when it comes to anything related to our leases. Our leases are also vetted by attorneys.
Okay, no, I'm not asking whether you're legally compliant. I'm asking whether there's a uniform policy of enforcement. So in the event of an incident, what policies govern whether eviction will actually be pursued? That's my question.
Yeah, yes, we have a property management manual that outlines all those details for our staff to follow. So it is uniform, clear violations, if somebody's doing anything illegal on property, that's an obvious lease violation, violence, right? So there's levels that are automatic. And then there's, of course, the more common things most people hear about, non-payment of rent, et cetera.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to piggyback on what John said. I am also an architect. And I look at the site plan here where you back up to cul-de-sac of single-family homes. and you're basically almost on a freeway ramp. You're just off a highway ramp with very high traffic count. And you're in the gateway to a residential area. So there's a kind of a jarring connection there. And you're trying to do a great thing, but in a postage stamp size area right on the traffic. I would dare anyone in this room to run across 161 almost any time of day. So when you compare this to 1111 Mediterranean, which is off the road in a commercial area, certainly not a connector highway of 7 or 8 lanes, it's apples and oranges. So I'm curious as to why you aren't trying to follow. I think you have a fantastic mission, but I'm not convinced this is the place for it. And I haven't heard anything to convince me yet. Why would you not follow in the footsteps of Mediterranean and get your goals met without a rezoning that has all this other baggage, what are permanence and who's going to own this in 10 years and all the other questions that come up? It seems like that would be an easier road to go to accomplish your goals. And I'm curious to see who would take advantage of their example.
And I'm curious to, I know we're gonna hear a little bit, but I'm curious as to what the accommodations were to the proposal from the association. So I'm sure we'll hear that as well.
So to answer the question about why this building is available. 1, 2 has been fairly recently rehabbed and it is in good shape. There were other buildings available. One building available actually is right across 1111 Mediterranean that is not in good shape. And that building is such bad shape that it will cost millions and millions of dollars to rehab it. So we are going back to the fact that the investment needed to get that building back to where we would even look at it, it goes back to over $10 million, which again is not cost effective. Right, so we have to look at what is cost effective to get us to the place where is availability and cost efficiency.
All right, let's go. Let's hear the other speakers. We've been at this 40 minutes so far. Let's see what they have to say, and then we'll bring you back to the microphones. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Bill Logan, who is the co-chair of the NCC Development Committee, if you could join me as well.
Absolutely.
And I know staff mentioned that we had a 6-page report. I anticipate you may not have had a chance to read it, but could I share this with staff if I seem to share them with you? Thanks.
Well, they already have it, yeah.
They do,
Yeah, they
okay,
do.
thank you.
I'm Bill Logan, the co-chair of Northern Community Council's Development Committee.
Dave Paul, also co-chair of the Northland Community Council Development Committee, which is a coalition of 25 civic associations in the area that we're discussing. I appreciate the commission members' questions because candidly, those will make my presentation probably much shorter, only because what you've said, the questions you've raised are many of the questions that our committee has expressed to the applicant and also that we've heard from members of the community. And again, I know that we don't have time to go through my 6-page report. I'm simply going to try to use it as an outline. First thing I'd like to say is, like you've expressed, we are fully supportive of the Community Shelter Board and their mission. We understand, and I think I speak certainly for our committee members, the community at large, how the Community Shelter Board is benefiting the community at large by addressing the issues of homelessness, hopefully preventing homelessness in our community. We understand what they're doing. We meet with them on a quarterly basis to talk about that, learn about what issues they may be having, and also express any concerns the community may have, and keep the community informed, accurately informed, as to the homeless community, their needs, what they are and are not responsible for in terms of ills in our community, because there's always a little misunderstanding, I think, about some of the issues we're dealing with in this area. So we are supportive of the Community Shelter Board and their mission. We've been supportive of the Community Shelter Board in terms of the project they mentioned at 1111 Mediterranean. In fact, our committee unanimously supported a council variance that has allowed them to establish that facility and operate it in a hotel district around the continent, not on the commercial right of way, as you've pointed out, in a much perhaps protected, better environment for locating a facility like this, and that doesn't have some of the other issues we have with this particular facility. I'm going to, again, not go through its history, but point out this particular location, this particular site is a very sensitive one for the Northland community because it's contributed a tremendous amount of problems, especially since 2013, when it was operating as a hotel. It was determined to be a hotspot for not just drug sales or even use, but production of drugs, as well as prostitution, other crime, including violent crime that's occurred at the site. So we've certainly had our eyes on this particular site and been concerned about trying to find some sort of responsible use for it, and certainly not allow it to continue to be a public nuisance. It was declared a public nuisance, and in fact, the land still has a court order that enjoins it from becoming a public nuisance again. Again, none of this has to do with the actions or responsibility of the current owner of the property, who only purchased this property in 2018. We don't attribute any of those problems to him, but it is a site that is very attractive for certain types of businesses we would like to not see resume in the Northland area because of its proximity to the interstate, the fact that it does front a very active commercial corridor, and because of the configuration of the building. As you point out, it was designed as a motel. It was built 50 years ago. It has, notwithstanding modifications have been proposed, access to each room has been from the outside. It basically was a prime address for this kind of activity. In addition, we've learned, I think it's fair to say we've learned a lot through this process of talking with them and also talking with other city agencies, that there's a lot of work that would need to be done to adapt this facility that may not be readily apparent to this kind of use or to any kind of residential use. If the property is rezoned, there are a number of things that will need to happen before they can provide occupancy to even one tenant. And those would include replumbing this property to provide a separate sink for sanitary purposes versus kitchen. There would not be permitted to just use the sink that we're probably all familiar with, that you have in a little vanity area associated with the bathroom, or a cooking area. They can't be used for both purposes under our building code. They would need to provide a dedicated circuit for cooking appliances, even a microwave oven. I personally question whether a microwave oven is really a way to provide self-sufficiency to these residents in terms of providing for their own food needs. Again, they have indicated that they have some services they can provide them, but nevertheless, microwave oven would still require a dedicated circuit. So they were talking about rewiring. It does not have a breaker box for each unit or even accessible to all the tenants, which is a requirement of the current code. I won't go through the entire list. There is one in the presentation that I've given you. But there are about 8 items that are quite significant that would be needed to retrofit this particular property for this particular use. And we were frankly a little surprised that neither the Community Shelter Board nor the property owners seem to have really given a lot of consideration to the investment required to adapt this specific property for that use. Perhaps we underestimate them, but that wasn't the sense we got. There's also, as I think was mentioned, some uncertainty on our part that given that potential cost of retrofitting and adapting this particular site to that use, either the Community Shelter Board or the property owner may decide they don't want to take this approach at all. And if that were to occur, we are concerned that we may end up with what we've encountered very recently, a phenomenon of micro apartments. Apartments, affordable housing. Again, I want to say, we understand the need for affordable housing. We're not unaware of that or think that we can get away without providing alternatives for affordable housing. But what we've been hearing a lot from a variety of developers, out-of-town developers mostly, is the idea that they turn the hotels into micro apartments. As we understand it, all of these applications to do this would require this kind of retrofit that we're talking about. This particular property, because of its construction, which is masonry and concrete slab and so forth, we think it may be entirely impractical to even do that kind of retrofit at this site. Again, we're not engineers. Oops, Mr. Logan is an architect, but he's the only fellow on or lady on our committee who has those kinds of credentials. But it is our sense that would be a major undertaking. And we are talking about a 50-year-old structure, and it's not getting younger, nor is our area getting younger. And we already have in this area quite a few structures, businesses, and so forth that are already abandoned, neglected, and we're trying to address that. Quickly, this location is also important to us because it is a key location in the Northland area. As you come off the I-71 interchange, as I think some of the commissioners have mentioned, it's one of the first things you see as you come into Northland. That rejuvenation or recovery that I described a moment ago is dependent on commercial investors coming to the area and seeing it as being worthy of investment and helping us find community uses that benefit the surrounding neighborhoods. And we're concerned that this use, even with the modifications that they propose, perhaps to make the facility more secure, or in some case, perhaps even because of those modifications, may be far less attractive than we would like. As commissioners have mentioned, has been no effective landscaping, and there's not much space to do it in. It's mostly asphalt. And the structure does not lend itself to that kind of aesthetic. So those are a number of our concerns. One more to mention, again, you may or may not be aware of it, this area is a food desert. I don't know that we could say it's received that official classification, but the closest grocery store to this facility is 2.6 miles away on Morse Road. The closest pharmacy is 1.3 miles away to the east on 161. We're in an area where there are effectively no sidewalks. We have a 50-mile-per-hour divided highway directly in front of this facility. There is a bus stop. It's served by one bus line that runs down Carl Road. You actually can't get east or west of the bus without making a transfer somewhere else. It's not a good situation in terms of gaining access to food sources or other sources that most of us would expect to have in our neighborhood. If this was a walkable area, if it was not a food desert, we would be much more open to the idea of this use or even micro apartments. We recognize they have a place in certain kinds of neighborhoods. We're just not there. This is the community, nor specifically, this is the site. 1111 has worked rather well. We, again, have been supportive of the applicants in terms of their efforts to assist the homeless families there. As commissioners mentioned, there are common areas. There's a kitchen, I believe, at 1111. They're equipped with a kitchen if they needed to provide some kind of communal food service. I'm not all clear on all the specifics of how the rooms are outfitted. I do think they have some of the same code issues I mentioned because it's a hotel. There are other properties in the area that are also becoming less relevant, if you will. Some of them are extended stay and are actually designed with separate cooking facilities. Those may be options, or other hotels in the area may be options. And we've suggested to the applicant that they consider that. I know of one hotel just down the road that is interested in talking with them, and I think they've been contacted about that. We also would perhaps propose to the applicant that they consider an alternative zoning mechanism. We think there might be several alternatives to rezoning this site, which is not only zoned C3, but in our Northland plan, which the community helped develop and was updated in 2014, it calls for community commercial at this location as well as the location surrounding it. There's a reason for that. We don't think that rezoning the site for apartment residential at this specific location makes a lot of sense to the community, again, because it exposes the community to risk that we may end up with something entirely different at that site at some point. We would like to explore with them the same mechanism they have been using successfully at 1111, which is council variance that allows them to engage in specific uses without changing the zoning map. There may be more than I can say, but I'm going to defer to my colleague here and let him get a word in edgewise, unless you had questions for me.
Nope.
I'll continue and ask this questions. With us, you get 2 for the price. All right. Yeah, Dave made the mistake of telling you that, yes, I am an architect the last time, and that makes 3 of us here. So that's a bad triumphant deal. 4, I apologize for anybody I missed. Last time I performed, and this committee had the good sense to decide 6-1, I'm not sure why the 1, that they would disapprove that application, all for the same reasons we're dealing with this facility. It's the building is not made for the use they're wanting to put it to. They're going through immense gyrations trying to get it to function the way they want it to, like 1111. The current building is 52 years old. It's lived through its usefulness. It needs bulldozed down. The prior owner, who spent a good amount of change and put a new paint job on the building, concluded that they could not operate it as a hotel motel because nobody showed up in the deal. And they're under such restrictions through the injunction that the city has placed on the property, which is on the property, not on the building and not on the owner specifically. And that carries over for anybody who buys this building, that anything that can be claimed as a nuisance, and there's a lot of things that can be claimed as a nuisance, they can have the building removed from their possession. That's the way the injunction reads. Why you would even contemplate purchasing a building with that kind of legal baggage hanging over it, I don't know, but that's for others to make. I did want to make a point. All these folks behind us, I agree with 90% of what they said. We agree with their point that what we're trying to keep them from doing is making a mistake, a rather big and economic mistake here, in taking over a building that is not suited for their purposes and causing them to go through immense gyrations, trying to get it to do so to satisfy the community, the city, and their own needs with their own tenants. The 2 quick pictures. The open hotel that you saw, can't disagree with, that's what's happening in other parts of the country, but that's California and Florida. Okay, I got news for you. The weather here in Columbus isn't those 2 communities. The point that was brought up with snow and all the issues associated with an outside access motel, it just absolutely creates immense problems no matter what you try to do until you enclose them. And when you enclose them, you spend so much money that raises questions of what the heck you're doing. If you're driving the truck they showed in the picture in front of the concrete wall, please don't knock the wall down, particularly if there's a handicapped person behind it trying to get into the room. It's that kind of, and I'm going to use the word parochial, design definitions that we questioned and no one answered for those issues to us. Those were attempts. Those were not solutions. We have never received architectural plans on this complex. Unlike a new building where we can rely on the code providing us with assurances that the building is going to be in compliance with the safety and health standards for everybody in apartment living, they're obligated in this case to provide us with architectural plans that define everything like kitchenettes, which we have no idea, great to say it, harder to do when you're dealing with the room. The committee last month, back in September, agreed, and we agreed with them, that it's an inappropriate use, and this building is just the exact same. It's an inappropriate use. It's right across the street and it was built for the very same purposes. All we're going to be trying to do if this proceeds is simply warehousing people in little cubes, the same size cubes that were in the cubes across the street at 1300. The other issues. We've proposed compromises because that's what everybody does, this commission, excuse me, as well as us, and we've talked about the CV process. The 1100, we are supportive. It has its problems. The kitchenette is not there, and they've been told they cannot operate with the way they've done it It has to change. It has to be brought into code compliance because they're using it as a separate tenant function. And the city attorney, I believe, will be discussing that with them. But the kitchenette issue is a monstrous one when you're looking at 80 of those things over again. And it subtracts out from the photos you've seen, which are the rooms. Those are the rooms in this particular facility, and they will take out of the usable space when it's left over. I stopped counting the amount of extensive remodeling that's required to this building to bring it into code. My architectural friends will know that means everything from the door handles to comply with ADA, to the door widths, to the hallway widths, to the rise runs and the stairways, to the handrail heights, much less the devices in each of the rooms, which don't comply. They were built before ADA was even in existence back in the 70s. And therefore, to bring the building up to those current code standards, I won't say it's impossible, because if you got enough money, you can do anything. But I never seem to be able to get those clients in my case. The other point to the compromise aspects and alternatives. The fact is, in Northland, in the 161-71 corridor, we have no less than 12 other central corridor hotels that have automatically the security available. But quite frankly, the majority of them are going to be out of business in short order and or are already out of order that can be utilized. We have one of the owners here tonight that's willing to offer the opportunity to CSB to utilize their interior corridor facility that has double the amount of rooms that this particular facility has. But when we talked to them, they simply put blinders on and said, we're going to go through the system and get an approval back through this commission. And I question whether that is in the interest of certainly Northland, much less the commission here and the city in total.
Chair.
Question?
Yes.
You've heard quite a bit. I think I need to get other speakers and.
You've been very generous with time. Thank you.
I would like to nip this in the bud if it's possible. We've heard both sides of this discussion. We're more than willing to hear 3 speakers, but I think we already get the picture. And I think you've already heard us discuss our take on it. And I would like to we've been on this now for an hour.
Yes, sir.
And we voted on a very similar case on this a couple of months ago. This is a dilemma. It's very difficult.
Agreed.
This is a mission that is absolutely needed. All you have to do is watch any TV station any night you're watching the news, or drive down 315 or some other highway in town. It's beginning to crop up here.
Yes.
So we need to do something, but we need to do it right. And I think there's too many who's, what's, where's, why, how, up in the air anyway, but this location is on the throat of major highway traffic. It's on the gateway to a whole part of Columbus. And if something doesn't happen right here, it's going to set a precedent for mistakes, domino effect down the road. I would like to see this case tabled right now so that the applicant can take the time to talk to the staff about following in the footsteps of 1111 and see if there's a way you can accomplish that. It's like fool's gold. I've been an architect for over 50 years. And there's many times somebody thought they had a great existing building, just slap a coat of paint on it. And they found out that the cheapest opportunity was to tear the building down because too many pieces and parts of it clashed with the code as the code changed. This building was built in 1972, let's say 50 years ago.
52 years ago.
52 years ago. The code has probably changed 15 times since then. And the old building official, Joe Bush, sat a stack of books about this high on his desk back in the 80s and said, this is all we had to refer to get out a building permit. Greg Lashutka was the mayor then. Then he looked over here and there was a stack about 4 feet tall of reference books and connections in order to give out the same building permit. So all kinds of restrictions and rules and regulations come into anything, especially if you need to have something that is supporting people with disabilities. So this is not an easy cat to skin. It looks like a great idea. It's cleanly painted, but nothing in it lends itself to a cheap way to get modified for the use. I think everybody in this room believes in your mission and would like to help you achieve those goals. And I think everybody on the staff, same way. I think you're not there yet. You need to go back to the drawing board and look for ways to work the system to your benefit and get the job done that you need to have done and be able to explain, here's what we're going to do, here's how it's going to work, and here's how much it's going to cost. And there are plenty of existing buildings that can be adopted. But this thing is in a terrible location for a lot of reasons. And it is locked in with its structure, with these hotel room, probably 2-hour firewalls. They're 12 feet,
concrete.
so flat slab construction. You got
Fire separate law.
So I would like to I would like somebody to make a motion to table this for further discussion.
Chair, it is up to the applicant if they want to.
Let's bring the applicant up.
I've got a question for Tim.
Yes.
Why wouldn't this be a CPD?
CPDs don't allow for residential uses on ground floor.
Okay.
All right, let's have the applicants come back to the microphone.
Let me just say, as we walk away from the mic, again, we stand ready to continue to work with CSP. We want them to be successful in helping us, but we agree this is not the right location or perhaps the right zoning mechanism to do that. So thank you. We appreciate your time.
And my position is I'd rather vote for a table than say vote no and put a black eye on this and make it spin the wrong way. So please come back to the microphone. Let's talk about it. We got 4 other cases we got to hear, so it's time to make a decision. How do you feel about the idea of table this thing for further discussion, do a little more research, look at other opportunities? And if you come back with the same exact thing and it's just your only hope, come back ready to tell us how you're going to do it, what you're going to do, and how it's going to work.
I think it's, whatever you think the best decision is. Again, we are not the experts in this. We are coming to you. That's why we did the presentation, to explain what our needs are. We don't have all the answers. We know that we need more housing. We know that wherever we go in any neighborhood for any type of housing that works for our people, we will likely not be welcomed. That's one of the issues that we have to talk about. But again, we are coming to you as, looking for help. So
Well,
whatever decision you
I would
think-
offer one suggestion. You've got 3 architects on this commission and some planners. One of our city planners is not here tonight. And we're all optimists and we all are dreamers, and you don't want to rely totally on the architects and planners. You need to talk to some builders too that know how to get their hands in and make these things happen, because I have seen too many times where a brand new hotel cannot move in because they didn't put a little piece of drywall in the right place. And now there's a chase going up through floors, and that the hotel can't open for 6 weeks because they have to work a way around that, or a senior living center. I've seen it many times, and that's new construction, not remodeling an old thing. So you need to be very resourceful. I think you have a mission. You have a use that people have a soft heart for, and people know that something has to be done. You can't just let it fester. It's a situation that needs to be actively gone after. So I think you need to do a little bit more research, and when you come back, have a better explained roadmap to how you're gonna get these things done and how you're gonna deal with all these rules and regulations you gotta live with to make everything come out.
Chair, I do just want to caution, this is not a building code body. We are here to recommend on land use zoning. I understand the concerns, but I don't want to get into another discussion about how, if they need to do these building code improvements, that's on them. That is not up to us here.
I totally agree.
And I just want to make sure that's not something that they're coming back to you to explain, because.
The
that is
seven
not-
people on this board have to be convinced
I understand.
that it's
Just saying.
doable in order to be an appropriate use. And I think giving it as a rezoning and then finding out after that, gee, there's no way around this.
I
You got
understand that, but that is a request here, so.
That's my question too.
But I think be optimistic and go forward, and you will find a way, but it's gonna take teamwork. It's gonna take a lot of people focusing, and then if you came in here today with the 1111 Mediterranean, probably everything would fall into place. Because it is an appropriate use and it's a very much needed use. But I don't think we're getting that tackled today. So if you would be amenable to a tabling, we'll do that. We don't want to vote no. And we'll see you again when things are a little bit more focused. Okay, motion? No move. Second.
Before that, if you are coming back, I would say it would be very helpful to have some better graphics for us to appreciate. Because everything we are describing about the building is just verbal. And we didn't see anything about how the parking is arranged. We didn't see anything about, the perspective we show was just a closing perspective. We didn't show the entire thing. So, more graphics and better understanding graphic that solves the issues we have raised here will be very helpful too.
Got it.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
You just say
Oh.
aye.
All right,
Yeah.
all those in favor of this tabling? Yeah. Okay, you are tabled to the next available agenda. And as Dave said, he's willing to collaborate with you to find your way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, case number 6. Z22-053 1895 Stelzer Road.
Your supplemental packet, you'll find an email of support from the Northeast Area Commission regarding this request. Rezoning request Z22-053 was tabled at the January 2022 Development Commission meeting. The 12.18 acre site consists of 2 parcels developed with single unit dwellings and part of 3 other undeveloped parcels. The subject site is split zone, LM Limited Manufacturing District, CPD Commercial Plan Development District, and R Rural District. The requested AR1 apartment residential district will permit a multi-unit residential development with an allowable density of up to 32.1 dwelling units per acre. North of the site is a medical office and clinic in the LM Limited Manufacturing District and undeveloped land in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. South of the site is undeveloped land in the LM Limited Manufacturing District. East of the site are single-unit dwellings in the R12 Urban Residential District in Midland Township. And west of the site is a warehouse in the LM Manufacturing District. Concurrent CV 22-065 has been filed and demonstrates a multi-unit residential development containing 228 units and includes variances to maneuvering, parking space, perimeter yard, and minimum numbers of parking spaces required. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the planning boundaries of both the Northeast Area Plan, which recommends office light industrial land uses, and the Port Columbus Joint Economic Development Strategy, which recommends mixed-use land uses at this location. The site is within the boundaries of the Northeast Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The requested AR1 apartment residential district will permit the site to be developed with a multi-unit residential development. Planning Division staff does not support the proposed use. The Northeast Area Plan recommends office light industrial land uses. Further, while the Port Columbus Joint Economic Development Strategy recommends mixed-use land uses at this location, the mix of uses intended is to be high-end corporate office development that supports business travelers and appropriate services. The requested AR1 district is not consistent with these recommendations and is therefore not supported by staff.
Okay, any questions? Comment? Dan, traffic.
This application would alter existing traffic commitments that control access to Seltzer Road with existing limitation text. Traffic access study is in progress. We were able to provide a review response to that study this afternoon. Unfortunately, we're not able to support the current location proposed for the access point to Stelzer Road. We were able to determine that we could support a location located minimum of 225 feet from the southern property line.
Okay. All right, planning, Chris?
No further comments as noted. Planning is not supported.
Okay, Kathy?
All comments have been included.
Okay. Michael, you're here. Is anyone here to speak on this case number 6 right now? No. Okay, Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be succinct, but I am mindful that one member of the commission was not present for the January hearing. So I'd like to briefly go over that and explain what we've done since then. By way of background, and that's a good aerial of the site, I refer to this whole area on the west side of Stelzer Road, the portion in the picture, and over 200 acres to the north and to the west as the City Gate Corporate Park. That was an original 200-acre rezoning that actually has my signature on it from 1988. Subsequently, in private practice, I rezoned that 200 acres 4 or 5 times before I got it right. And the vast majority of the property was owned LM2, as is the current site. This site is no longer owned by the principal that developed City Gate, but it is in fact the remnant tract of undeveloped property of the City Gate property. We spent a lot of time with the area commission on this, 4 separate meetings with their zoning committee and 2 with their full committee, and garnered unanimous support for the notion that, number one, although the plan calls for the office here and light industrial, this site does not accommodate light industrial or office for a number of reasons. Number 2, at the request of the area commission, we analyzed the truck traffic and other traffic that would be generated by the LM2 use of the current zoning, and included what the turn radii would be for those trucks entering and exiting through the primary access, and compared that to the traffic counts of our requested multifamily product. We did that because there, and the area commission, which I have worked in for more than 30 years, they are somewhat overwhelmed by truck traffic. Now, admittedly, this is a corporate park area, but between the traffic on Agler Road and Cassidy Road, and it's all supposed to be funneled to Stelzer, there was genuine concern about using this remainder tract, which is kind of a bowling alley or an inverted L-shaped tract. Number 1, because of the traffic. Number 2, because of the obnoxious nature of those potential uses. When you look what is directly to our north, that white structure is a 24/7 hospital. It's a behavioral hospital. People can go there with emergency medical conditions 24/7, 365. It has an inpatient facility. We feel that light industrial and office is, number 1, not realistic and consistent with the market. And number 2 is an obnoxious use next to in this case, a behavioral health facility. We think they deserve the tranquility to the extent possible. More importantly, the existing site is compromised by a large stream corridor that bisects the site, as shown on the map in red. If you have an inverted L there, it's basically bisects where the portion there that's further to the north, you see the red line there. It actually, including the stream, that easement is about 171 feet. So probably somewhere between 60 and 80 feet from the center line of the creek on either side at a minimum. That will be preserved and with agreement of the area commission to be used as amenity space. And again, the apartments are a commercial use for tax purposes. So it generates the commercial taxes that has the impact of a residential use. And I think very importantly, the last thing to note is when last we came here, we tried to develop consensus on the land use. At that time, we were asked to do a traffic access study, and you might remember it was the first meeting since Marty's passing. And I made the comment that, you know, you really need to get the traffic access studies dotted and T's crossed. Since that time, two things have happened. Number one, the access study developed into a traffic impact study. And there's a big difference in terms of the time, effort, and money involved. So although it said access study in the staff report, based on the information that was required in the chip generation, it was really treated like a traffic impact study. We did an MOU that was executed with the city, studied all the pressure points, the traffic counts. Now that they have reviewed that, we are amenable to the suggested change that they are asking for in terms of the access location. And the other significant thing that changed since the last time is, as part of our reaching out to the neighbors, we talked to the residents across the street who supported us. And we reached out to the southern property that was 2.5 acres along our southern boundary. When last we were here, they had a representative monitor the hearing and wanted to make sure we could address their concerns. And they wanted desperately to sell their property. So we incorporated that 2.5 acre site. Thank you. Staff has outlined that site in yellow there. As you can see, all that purple there that you see going north of the yellow and to the west of the yellow, that's all City Gate, all the way up to Agler, all the way over to Cassie. And this one remainder tract, quite frankly, was undevelopable when the market was strong. It's undevelopable now. This would be a market rate housing project, which is in critical need. And I think more importantly, 20% would be affordable housing, which is even a more desperate situation. So for those reasons, we think the residential use is appropriate. We've dotted our I's and crossed our T's. With planning, we just have to agree to disagree. I fully understand their mantra to create jobs and employment, but quite frankly, we've done that with the other 200 acres. This remnant tract we do have proposed users who want to store semi-trucks here. That is a very hot market. It's unbelievable with the supply chain issues and things of that nature. They will pay top dollar to lease this site just to let their drivers park their semis there, drive their car home, and then bring their car back and park their and take off in their semi. That's not the type of neighboring use that we want to have next to a hospital or across the street from that residential strip that's down by Forsaken Land in the unincorporated township. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sorry I took so long, but to the extent Mr. Carey wasn't here the first time, I did want to say that I felt a consensus that the land use might be appropriate with the majority of the members, but we had to sharpen our pencil with respect to traffic. That changed a little bit with adding that additional acreage, but we agree with Mr. Moorhead's analysis and we'll accept those findings and incorporate them into our final traffic.
Okay, any questions about traffic? And
Thank you for getting me up to speed, Mr. Shen.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
okay, is there anyone here to speak regarding this application? I think nobody jumped up. Okay.
The Robert Weiler Company is here and has representatives who would speak. Mr. Weiler recently has made headlines by selling a lot of property like this that's fully developed for half the market price for affordable housing. His commitment as a pioneer in that area, along with guys like Don Kelly, is manifested here as well, with at least 20% of these being people at 80% of the adjusted median income.
Okay, that's a nice detail.
Thank you.
All right, any questions of the applicant? I think we understand, and you have, just to go back over, you have agreed to execute the traffic concerns that were brought up as a result of the study.
More importantly, my traffic engineer and client have agreed. I told them they had to agree, but they said, we actually do agree, Mike. I said, okay, good.
I thought you brought your checkbook. Okay, I think we need a motion to add the comments regarding the agreement by the applicant's clients for these traffic
Yes, sir.
commitments.
Yeah, there are conditions that are specified in their letter, and we're fine with all our correspondence dated today, I think.
Yeah, it's come in today with that information is dated today. I need a motion to put that in.
And that was a quick turnaround by traffic. Thank you.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Okay, please call a roll.
Denise P. Shanklin.
Yes.
Amanda Golden.
Yes.
John Ingwerson.
Yes.
Ken Lugway.
Yes.
David Carey.
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Okay, case number 7. Z22-066, 3873 Gender Road.
If you look in your supplemental packets, you will find an updated PUD text as well as an updated site plan, landscape plan, and several other exhibits reflecting recent changes to this location. And you will also find a letter I received from a neighboring property owner expressing concerns with the proposed rezoning as well as the development in code. The 64.55 acre site consists of 2 undeveloped parcels in the R Rural District. The requested PUD4 Plan Unit Development District will permit a single unit residential development with a maximum of 177 dwelling units. The gross density of the overall PUD is 2.7 dwelling units per acre. The net density, net of dedicated right-of-way, is 3.4 dwelling units per acre. A total of 33 acres of open space is proposed in 5 reserve areas. To the north of the site is undeveloped land in the R Rural District. To the south is undeveloped farmland and a single unit dwelling in the R Rural District. To the east is undeveloped land in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District and LM Limited Manufacturing District. To the west is undeveloped farmland in the R Rural District. The site is located within the boundaries of the Southeast Land Use Plan, which recommends low to medium density residential at 6 to 10 dwelling units per acre, and low density residential, which recommends 4 to 6 dwelling units per acre at this location. The plan also includes complete adoption of the Columbus citywide planning policies and design guidelines. The plan does support a range of housing types and sensitive site design and cluster development, such as larger development that includes several different residential unit types and a central open space. Those policies also include new single and 2 unit housing in high density projects, include a high level of architectural design with quality and durable materials that buildings be oriented to the street. Homes with porches be set back at least 2 feet from the front elevation. Open space should be integrated into new developments, serving as an organizational element with a centralized green space, connection to adjacent open space, protection of natural areas, and as a buffer along scenic roadways. That open space should also include landscaping, trees, and connections to sidewalks or trails, and development should address open space, as in buildings should front parks and the open space. The site is located within the boundaries of the Greater Southeast Area Commission, whose recommendation had not been received at the time the staff report was finalized. The PUD text establishes use restrictions and includes supplemental development standards committing to a maximum of 177 dwelling units and addressing side yards, building setbacks, lot widths, rear yard setbacks, access, landscaping and open space, and building design. Text also establishes a parkland dedication of 27 acres per chapter 3318 of the Columbus City Code. The requested PUD4 Plan Unit Development District will facilitate a single unit residential development. Staff supports the proposed use as it is consistent with the land use recommendations of the Southeast Land Use Plan. Staff continues to encourage an increased number of dwelling units front and address the adjacent open space areas consistent with C2P2 design guidelines. However, staff recognizes the physical limitations of the site make such revisions difficult and do not condition support on those changes. When this report was finalized, the Department of Public Service was requesting monetary contribution for future roadway infrastructure improvements. The revised PUD text in the supplemental packet with that contribution language has been received, and staff's recommendation has been updated to approval.
Can you tell me, have you received anything since the report was typed regarding the Southeast Area Commission?
No, I have actually, I believe Ms. Mott has reached out to them, and I reached out to them directly as well, and I have received no correspondence or any phone call or returning.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Mott with the Plank Law Firm, and I've probably reached out to them no less than 10 times by email and phone call. We hold no ill will about that, but we haven't received the recommendation of approval, although we did receive a vote of recommendation of approval at both the zoning committee level and the full commission level. And that was a few months ago, not just recently.
All right. Dan, any traffic issues as we go forward?
A traffic access study has been approved for this application and the necessary commitments have been incorporated into the text, as Joe mentioned.
Okay. Chris?
As noted in the very thorough staff report, staff planning is in support. We continue to encourage the applicants to find ways to front more on the metro parks to the north and the Lotus Park to the east, but we're not conditioning on that.
Okay, fine. And Kathy?
And we're thrilled, and the opportunity to be able to have those homes front towards the park area so that they have a green space to enjoy.
Well, that's good. You don't hear that word very often. Thrilled. We can make a note of that. Thrilled, okay. Would you like to amplify with the?
I would
staff
like to
report?
provide a
Okay.
few points
Please.
just as an overview or summary.
Okay.
Because this is pretty important. This site is about 65 acres and 50% of it is going to be green space and open space. The area back here in the rear, this Reserve G, will be publicly dedicated parkland to the city of Columbus. And the property to the north is Metro Park property already, so there will be a stubbed connection to that Metro Park to the north. So a lot of open space and parkland provided. There's also, we well exceed the open space requirement. That is 2.33 acres, and we're providing 27 acres of parkland dedication, plus the additional open space within the development itself that will be controlled by the HOA. We have moved some of the lots to front along some of the green space and the retention pond up front. So we did do as many of the lots as we could that were feasible to front open space. And there was no way to have all the other lots like turn and front the park or the property to the north because of elevation, grading changes with the topography of the land. This land is also in the floodplain. So our engineering is going to have to fill the floodplain for the lots, and none of the lots are going to be in the floodplain in the future. But the parkland will still have some floodplain attached to it. So there's elevation changes, topography issues, grading issues with this site, but we will fill that with dirt and of course obtain any and all governmental approvals for that permit process. In addition, our development team was super sensitive to the home that is to the south west corner of the site along the road frontage. That is an old schoolhouse church residential property. I believe that neighbor is here tonight. And we were always talking about not providing a full curb cut access south of near our property or south at our property line frontage because we did not want to impact widening of the road, turn lanes, tapers, to impact the grading of that schoolhouse site, that the building is pretty close to the road right of way. So what we instead proposed was emergency access only at the southern access and a full curb cut as our main entrance near the northern part. I believe traffic has required us to provide a right in, right out at the southern access point, which we've accommodated on all of our plans. But again, we show road improvements on that north entry point. That is a full curb cut access. That's where the front entrance feature will be. That's where the traffic should be routed. Both north and south right-of-way improvements are going to be made up there at that full curb cut access. With that, I think I'm just, here to answer any questions. I did meet with the neighbor before coming in this evening out in the lobby. We committed to working with them, whatever comments they have. I'm not sure what the comments are. We're going to be listening to those, and certainly we're committed to working with them after this meeting if there's anything we can do to work with them, and that's it. So if there's any questions, we're happy to answer your questions.
Questions, pop up? Okay, let's I didn't ask, are you here to speak regarding this case? Okay, please come forward. Melissa will call you back if needed.
Members of the commission and staff, my name is Aaron Furstenberger. I'm an attorney with Stewart Poppers, Lightheart, McGrath, and Terlecki. I'm here on behalf of David and Michelle George, who do own the carved out corner that borders this. Unfortunately, they're not as thrilled with this development because, as you can see, it's going to butt right up to their backyard. David and Michelle purchased this property about 18 months ago, and I don't think I'm probably overstating it to say that it's something of a dream house for them, given the historical significance, the fact that it sits on a pretty sizable hill of the house itself. We're here tonight to object to the rezoning for really two primary reasons, and I expect that we're probably going to learn a lot tonight that may put some of my clients' fears and concerns to rest. Specifically, just the layout of the development as it is, such that it is literally the development half of the project is right in the backyard as opposed to on the eastern side of the property. And secondly, goes to traffic. And the question that they have is, why are we funneling the traffic out onto Rice Road in an area that's just 2 lanes and apparently very narrow, as opposed to funneling it out to Gender, which has the ability to be widened and is already a higher traffic area as it is. I'm going to defer going on further with this, and I'm going to leave it to my client, David George, to add a little more color and pose the questions that need to be posed.
Hi there. David George, this is my wife, Michelle. And yeah, like Aaron said, we purchased the property in August of 2021. And we're not here really to object conceptually. We believe that development is imminent. We understand that. We're not going to be naive about that. However, we're objecting, the first objection really is on the basis consistent with the Greater Southeast Commission's 2000 report, which states that only bike paths, pedestrian walkways, marinas, and agriculture could be developed in a flood in that historic floodplain. That floodplain is north of Georges Creek, no relation, and then south of Blacklit Creek, which enters our property to the northeast. That floodplain is actually on our property. We brought some photographs just to show what we've seen in just the 17 months. And I don't know, Michelle, you want to kind of pass those out. But basically, in these photos, in the 17 months, we've seen a dozen examples of standing water that would be considered substantial. It's in our property, but again, our house is elevated, at least right now, it's elevated substantially. It would not see the flood in our home as it is today. But a dozen times there's been floodwaters. The first picture is the corner of our property that shows the water underneath the agriculture that's growing in one of the parcels that is wished to be rezoned. So that's the first picture that as it goes around. The second picture is similar, but it shows it in the wintertime, just to show without the agriculture. You can see then that it goes into that parcel. And then this other one, this final one, is a picture north on our property, facing north into the property that's being developed. And this is pretty substantial flooding. We took these photographs with no purpose whatsoever. These are just photographs that we snapped over the 17 months that we've been here. If we knew that anything like this is going to happen, we just learned January 25th, by the way, in a mailing that I know there's a public notice, but we just got the information in our mailbox on Saturday, the 25th. So this is it, but there's a dozen examples in 17 months of standing water very close to this magnitude. So our first question would be based on the application saying that there would not be anything developed into that historic floodplain, but really it's saying we're going to actually have to move that floodplain, through grading and et cetera, which, it's not my field of expertise, but it just would seem illogical to me. One, why would you need to move a floodplain when you could just simply flip the two parcels, developing the one that is going to be preserved for green space. So that is one of the big concerns. A little bit about our house. It was built in 1855. It's called the Leidy House in historical accounts, including in the Greater Southeast Commission report of 2000. It's specifically stated in there as a historic a marker within the Greater Southeast community. And it was originally a schoolhouse developed by this Mr. Leidy, who petitioned the community to get an acre of property to build a school for both boys and girls to learn together and in the same room. In fact, it's pretty awesome. In one room, or in one door came the girls, and in the other came the boys, and then they would learn together. So we find this to be an awesome reason why we purchased the house. That's all just side information for you guys to, just understand, how much we love this home, I guess. But yeah, I mean, as far as the objections go, yes, we object on why there's not access into Gender Road as opposed to both on Bryce. Bryce Road is now, I mean, it is definitely exploding. This would be what we would call Old Bryce Road if you're familiar with the southeast side. But it is, there's a 15 unit or 15 three-story apartment buildings with 668 residents or units, I should say, that is going to be opening very, very soon. And that may have been heard by you guys already. It's going to be opening very soon. It faces another subdivision that's right across the street, Upper Ridge Drive. And then that is right next to the Moores apartment complex, which is a very large apartment complex. These are all going to come together on this particular development. So, we object on those grounds. Again, overall though, one thing we will say, there have been some changes to what we originally had seen. And keep in mind, we had very little time to prepare for this, but what we had originally seen, I think the retention pond that you're seeing in the front was in the back, if I'm not mistaken, Rebecca. So that's a pleasant change, and it does help alleviate, I think, part of those issues. We know in 2018, there was another report that pushed for creative means to develop in historic floodplains, and this is an effort, obviously, to be creative in that particular development. But again, we would question why this format and why not flip. There would be no objection. There'd be no neighbors whatsoever. The neighbor on the other side is the Schott family farm, and there would be no residency up against any of those. So that's our primary objections. And I thank you for your time.
To be clear, my client's objection with regard to the positioning, although certainly potential loss of property value is one item, I think that where the hesitancy with that is, our concern is if you're building in this floodplain and you're elevating where you're going to build, that's no matter how you're trying to channel it, there's going to be runoff in all directions. As the pictures depict, there's significant flooding at the back of the George's lot presently. I think the George's large concern is with the addition of all this new housing in such close proximity and the relocation of the floodplain, is this going to end up creating greater water problems on their property?
that are gonna turn it into a swamp of sorts. And I expect that the requisite studies have been done. I know that the city staff has done their due diligence on this. But these are questions that are deeply troubling to the Georges, and I'm not sure what satisfaction they can be given under a layout like this. And at the same time, if approved, I don't know what recourse the Georges have if down the road the promises that there won't be any problems with water don't end up being true. So we're certainly willing and open to hear further detail on these issues.
I've got a comment to make on that stormwater issue. The initials on this title block are EMH&T. That is the biggest, most sophisticated civil engineering firm in the city. They're responsible for most of New Albany. And as engineers, they have a duty to perform regarding this kind of situation where the developer of the new construction has an obligation to pick up the tributary areas that flow into it and properly deal with holding that up in a retention basin or in underground cisterns or some other technique. But in the remodel, in the reworking of this plot of ground, they have an obligation to pick up all that water that's flooding and flowing on the farm field and deal with it in an engineering way that can be documented, calculated, inspected, and approved, and it will be. So that helps you. Secondly, you have this little niche in the corner. How many acres is your?
1.
1 acre? I can't believe I'm not looking at a lot of trees and greenery to buffer you from the new construction so that you can sit on your back porch and look at nothing but trees and have absolutely no visual difference than you had before when it was open land. And it looks to me like you would have access to get through this property and get over there to those nice green fields and that multi-acre open land. So I think, I don't think it would be a bite out of the developer's pocket to have him commit to planting long-term green so that, A, you've got really good use of your existing 1 acre piece, but it also wouldn't visually detract from your home value and your peaceful use of it. That would be my comments. Does anybody else have a comment? Okay, let's call Melissa back. Or Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah, I just have 5 points to make. The current land use plan for both of these parcels, because there's 2, the density that would be allowed to go in here for residential would be 6 to 12 units per acre on the one parcel, 4 to 6 units per acre on the other. We are under both of those criteria at 2.7 units per acre. So our density is much lower than what would have been allowed under the land use plan. In addition, the stormwater drainage, stormwater manual, we're gonna follow that. And of course, we have EMH&T, the engineers, and we are mandated by law to retain and maintain and control our stormwater. And I believe it'll help and benefit the neighboring property as well. Once our property is controlled and maintained and there's all this infrastructure, the detention pond, that should help and benefit the property owner to our southeast. So again, if the water that they're looking at is on our site, we're going to control and maintain that, and it could benefit and control and help their situation as well. The other part of this I would like to add is we don't show a lot of landscaping buffer on their property line, the shared property line. I'm happy to add supplemental landscaping or even fencing if the city would permit us to do a fence or landscaping there. In addition, our roads within the development are public right of way. So the sidewalk connectivity that we are providing on the frontage along Bryce Road has connection into the development with the public right-of-ways that are within the development. So they can certainly use that as a walking trail to then go to that corner and again, just like the chairman noted, go into the parkland that's publicly dedicated. So all of that is for their use as well. And again, we're happy to work with them on any supplemental landscaping or fencing if the city would allow us to do that along the common lot line.
Okay. I don't think any of that needs to be memorialized in a motion, but any other questions, comments? Okay, I think we know what the land use is and we know what the conditions are. Please call the roll.
Amanda Golden.
Yes.
John Ingwerson.
Yes.
Kyle Mugway.
Yes.
David Carey.
Yes.
Denise P. Shanklin.
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you so much.
Okay, case number 8, Z22-08630 Parsons Avenue.
The site consists of 3 parcels developed with 2 parking lots in the CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, and ARLD Apartment Residential District. The applicant is requesting the CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, to permit a mixed-use development containing up to 3,000 square feet of commercial space, 2 dwelling units, and a new parking lot. The western portion of the site is located within the boundaries of Parsons Avenue, town quarter, urban commercial overlay. To the north of the site are offices and multi-unit buildings in the ARO Apartment Office District. To the south is a parking lot and establishment in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District and single-unit dwellings in the R3 Residential District. To the east is a commercial building in the ARLD Apartment Residential District, permitted by CV 95-046. To the west, across Parsons Avenue, is a parking lot in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District and a multi-unit dwelling in the ARLD Residential District. Concurrent CV 22-118 has been filed to allow ground floor residential uses. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. A portion of the site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Plan, which recommends higher density residential mixed-use land uses at this location. The plan encourages higher residential densities designed such that they ensure an appropriate transition to lower densities in the surrounding neighborhood. The site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Commission, whose recommendation for approval. The development text established use restrictions and supplemental development standards addressing density, setbacks, site access, landscaping, building design, lighting, and graphics commitments. Included in the text are code modifications to the building height, minimum number of required parking spaces, parking setback line, visual clearance, and building design standards. Additionally, the text includes commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan and building elevations. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, will allow a mixed-use development which is consistent with the Near East Area Plan recommendations. The plan encourages higher residential densities and designs such that they ensure an appropriate transition to lower densities in the surrounding neighborhood. They propose a mix of uses, building elevations that focus most intensely on Parsons Avenue, and the site plan that provides a buffer from neighboring residential to the east are consistent with these recommendations and therefore supported. Staff is also supportive of the requested parking reduction as the site is in an established urban area with access to multiple modes of transit and considered consistent with plan design and guidelines, recommending a balance of parking with the need to maintain the area's historic fabric. In your supplemental packet are updated comments from both the Planning Division and Division of Traffic Management. The Planning Division is supportive of the plans as presented in the staff report and will move to full support with enhanced screening of the parking lot and the inclusion of bicycle parking above code minimum. With the Division of Traffic Management, there will need to be striping in the western portion of the parking lot. Discussions regarding the scope of the work for this development are pending. In the parking lot configuration, it may affect alley improvements. To note, with traffic, a parking study has been approved, and a right-of-way dedication exception request has been approved as well. Once the comments from the Planning Division and the Division of Traffic Management are fully addressed, staff's recommendation will be updated to approval As of this time, recommendation is still for conditional approval.
Okay, let's talk about traffic, Dan.
I don't really have anything to add to the staff report, but I'd be happy to answer any traffic questions.
Okay.
I do have a question. What's, when does Parsons get cut off? And how is this affecting that? Doesn't it get cut off right below?
Yeah, that would
cut off right here.
to the
That
south.
won't go south anymore.
It'll connect to Elijah Pierce. So Elijah Pierce, which is the frontage road on the east side of 71, that will connect into Parsons Road.
Okay, so where that little corner is at the corner of Bryden, where Bryden switches to town, that's gonna come through that way and then curve into Parsons.
It's going to,
Take
if I
the building
may,
down.
Mr. Ingerson, it's going to split right there. And I think Elijah Pierce is going to run its own course and Parsons is going to run its own course north up to Broad Street. That's right.
So you will be able to continue on Parsons?
Yeah.
Without being on the
Correct.
perimeter road?
Correct. You would just have to, if you're going north, you'll have to turn right at the intersection. If you're coming south, then you'll end up turning left at that intersection.
Okay.
That project is currently unfunded, but it is on the current track proposal from the Ohio Department of Transportation. My understanding is that the draft recommendations for the next fiscal year should be announced in the next month. They were scheduled last month, but that meeting got postponed.
So it will be.
So that would that next meeting, I would anticipate that would be the announcement on whether or not that next phase gets funded in the current cycle, and then we would know what the fiscal year that would be in at that time.
In the future.
Right.
Chris, Payne?
No further comments. We have a few conditions that we expect.
Okay, we'll get into that. And Kathy?
No concern.
Okay. We have two people. Are you here to speak regarding this case? Okay. Fans, it's like the Super Bowl. Okay,
David Hodge, attorney for the applicant. My name is Brian Suter. I'm the applicant. So it's really been a great process. Lots of preliminary work went into this in terms of meeting with adjacent property owners and stakeholders. Reasonably clean process through the Near East Area Commission. We are here with their recommendation of approval as well as what you just heard from staff. We do agree to the conditions. We'll continue working both with traffic management and planning to make a few tweaks to the plan, especially as it relates to that eastern parking lot. Also some additional bike parking, but really a great project. It's part of the continued revitalization of this leg of Parsons Avenue as we come south of from Broad Street. And I'll stop there and we'll do our best to answer any questions.
are you confident enough to say that you will achieve satisfaction with the staff so
we will.
decision will go up to?
We will meet all of the conditions.
Okay.
Sure.
First floor use.
So it is some retail space and also some residential amenity space.
But no restaurant.
Maybe a restaurant, potentially.
Restaurant, bar, whatever, perhaps.
If that's who the tenant ends up being, we have accommodated for that possibility in this zoning
So that's
process.
your parking
Yes.
issue, and you're gonna have limited some sort of amount of first floor space that you're allowed to use for that? Is that how you're gonna handle it?
Yeah, so, yeah, I can get into that. We're asking for the most need for parking. You know, obviously it could be a retail space, but obviously we're asking for a restaurant just so that we can have that flexibility. The expectation is that the parking that you see behind that retail space is likely to be gated specifically for the residents. The parking to the east, we expect to have some amount of shared parking with, whether it's a validation program or something with that retailer or potentially with others around there. We don't know exactly how that's going to work quite yet.
I imagine that there's parking agreements that are just like they were in the short north, with a lot of property owners around there because that is a parking lot.
We don't have, there's currently not, yes, on the, we have allowed, both us and the folks that own the parking lot currently have allowed the public to park there. They're obviously private, lots, but we've obviously opened them up for the past bunch of years to allow that to happen. But this is obviously going to be specifically for the, once it's done, specifically for the users of the building and the retail space that's there.
Okay, good. All right, anybody have any more questions, comments? Okay, please call the roll.
John Ingerson.
Yes.
Kayan Lutwak.
Yes.
David Carey.
Yes.
Denise Keys Schenken.
Yes.
Amanda Golden.
Yes.
Sarah Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Great, thank you all. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Okay, get out of here.
That was good.
Hi, David.
Yeah, I wanted to say hi to you. I've been on the other side of the table.
Yeah. We know one another.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Always.
Internal part.
All right.